Let's run a test. Hello,
Sure.
everybody. Welcome back to Dental Nuisance podcast, episode number. Somebody almost messed up the number, but it is episode number 4. We're happy to get together with the amazing crew, Ashlee, Dr. Aaron, Dr. Brian, and myself, Tiger, to discuss what happened in July. July happened to be very productive. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 news on the dock. And we'll try to get through all of it in the next 3 hours before somebody gets hungry or somebody gets another drink or somebody just falls asleep. So why don't we just get right into it and start with, how do I share the screen? We don't have producer Jill today. She's off. That's what I said. And we're just going to do entire screen so I don't mess it up again. Share. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Supreme Court rulings. 3 Supreme Court rulings mean what 3 Supreme Court rulings mean for the dental industry. So this article goes into detail of affirmative action, what was passed on June 29th. The decision was settled, lawsuit against the Chapel Hill-based University of North Carolina and some of the other fancy schools that alleged that the school's affirmative action policy violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. There was also religious accommodation and student loan forgiveness. I find more interesting the student loan forgiveness, but again, maybe I'm just missing a bunch of stuff. But I wanted to see what you guys think on these 3 sections of the Supreme Court ruling and what would that mean to for dentistry. So I didn't click the share button. I probably should. And again, we're looking at this article that says what 3 Supreme Court rulings mean for dental industry. Brian, what do you think? Let's start with you.
Nothing.
Okay.
Dude, affirmative action is a very big conversation. I think we all know that there are certain groups of people that are underrepresented in dentistry. So that kind of just is what it is. It was interesting. They said Asian dentists are significantly overrepresented. Just interesting. I was reading an article that the one of the larger groups that fought the affirmative action was Asian Americans because they get into college so well. And so probably also people that look a lot like me because it means potentially less seats at the table. So there should be an equal representation of everyone in dentistry. Religious accommodations, I don't know, man, be a good person. You got an employee who wants to pray, let him pray. And the student loan forgiveness, from what I understood, that wasn't going to do anything for dentists anyway, because most dentists make too much. So I don't know if that affects us at all. But now that it's in here, maybe have incorrect information. But I didn't think that affected dentists.
One of the things what I've heard about the student loan forgiveness, I had a dentist over for dinner, and we were talking about it, and he was really confused. Either he should be paying down his student loan, but he was told by the financial advisor or somebody or some banker that if he wants to buy a practice, he shouldn't be paying that student loan because it's deferred, and he should save the money for the down payment to buy the practice. So I said, well, I'm going to run this by some smart people on the podcast before I answer that question. So maybe we can touch on that. Is there a reason why, or is it helpful for some of the people not to pay off the student loans because now it's possible that you don't need to, so you're saving for the down payment?
Go for it.
No, I was to say, I think banks have different algorithms at different times about when and how and why they're going to lend money. And so that may be the deal today, and in a month it might be different. But I know when I was selling my practice that the young doctors buying my practice said, they tell us buy the house first say, get this right, buy the house first, and that way they know you're not leaving. So then you buy the practice, and it gives you a better shot at it. When it seems like the smart thing to do would be buy the practice first, and then that gives you the money to buy the house. I don't know. I may even have that backwards, but it didn't make sense to me at the time when he explained it to me. I was like, well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right.
But this actually does make sense to me because it's like, hey, if it's deferred and you don't have to burn that money, then if you can show more cash in your account, then that shows you as being more stable. You have more resources. There are more places to go to pull money, even though you have this debt outstanding. There's still more money they can go after if you default on your loan, and so it gives them another shot.
I know that student debt for dentists is an understandable debt, and so it usually doesn't go against you. But the price for dental school varies so much. I had a student in residency who was $1 million in debt from education, and so there's got to be a tipping point or something there, like a ceiling, where like if you're already $600,000 in debt and you're trying to get another $600,000. Wouldn't you think, Aaron? Like, there's got to be a ceiling where they're going to be comfortable with
your debt to income ratio.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I've read the autobiographies of Elon Musk, the dude that did Zappos, and one other of these, these high flying guys. And it's like these guys were like their businesses were going down. They were $1 million plus in debt, and I would have like crawled into a hole. And these guys went out and borrowed another $1 million. You know, so like this thing where you have a ton of debt and banks are still willing to loan you money, I don't think is unique to the dental industry. Like I said, they have a different algorithm, and I don't understand it most of the time.
That's an entire strategy in growing a group practice. Like, try to get as much debt as you can because you can sell your debt, which is crazy to say, so that you can start to consolidate all of your loans and then get a line of revolving credit.
Yeah, I've heard people say, if you have a $500,000 loan that you can't service, then you have a problem. But if you have a $3 million loan you can't service, then the bank has a problem. So it's kind of like, at what point are they more invested in you being successful than you are, so to speak?
Yeah.
So the thought is, if at the moment you can defer paying the student loan, then you should do that to save the money aside to buy the practice.
I mean, I would. It's the old cash is king kind of thing. If you have cash, you can buy stuff. If what you have is
but that's ending in September, though, right? Like, there's only like a couple months left to do that. So, like, sure. And this only happened because of COVID, and that's when they allowed everyone to like defer their payments and pause their payments and that type of thing.
You also still have a certain amount of time on every student loan that you can defer. I think some loans are 18 months, some are multiple years. So you can choose to defer. You're going to accrue interest. Everyone's got their own philosophy on it. I look at student debt as like me paying extra money to student debt is not an investment. The investment is the debt in school. If I'm going to save money for something, I'd rather invest it in my dental office, which is going to pay me back. But paying a bunch of money to student debt is just is gone.
Right. Do we want to touch on the whole idea of like, what do we each think about the student loan forgiveness? Like, if it would have happened, like what are our thoughts on this individually?
Sure. It wouldn't have affected me, so it means nothing.
You have no opinion on it, though? I don't think that's true.
Me? Have an opinion? I'm like, it's just a weird thing because people are like, we talk to patients every day, right? And they're like, can you believe my son has $46,000 in student debt? And I'm like, that was a freaking trimester for me. Wham. I don't. It's you made the decision to do it. You made the decision to put yourself into debt. So do the right thing, pay it back, do something with your education. Education's insanely expensive. It shouldn't be this expensive. This could parlay into some of our upcoming conversations about what value-based dentistry and all of this stuff. You know, there's a lot of countries that do a lot of things like that, and they don't come out of school with debt. And so, you know, if you're going into school for that amount of debt, in my opinion, you should be able to do the opposite and make a good living off of it. But we all chose to do this. It would be nice if they would have done something. Like, just because I decided to go to a school that costs a lot more than somebody else doesn't mean that I shouldn't be allowed to be forgiven for some of that. I have to pay a lot more per month than the other person, and we both did the same thing. So it's like they took out $40,000 and they're going to make $61,000 a year. Percentage wise, I took out $400,000 and I'm going to make X amount per year. You know, there should be an equivalent, in my opinion.
Yeah. Brian, let's move on to Aaron just to make sure we hear everybody.
Yeah, I would say I have a couple of opinions about this. One is you made this decision when you were young and stupid. And you had this idea that when you became a dentist, you're going to make a bunch of money. And mostly it was unrealistic expectations. At the same time, the educational cost in the United States has been going up exponentially for decades. And most of that cost is in administration. It's not in a better quality of education. It's not in paying the teachers better. It's not in getting better instructors. It's at the top. And so I don't know why all of a sudden we need to be administrated so badly. When I was in dental school, it was a lot cheaper. I was 30 years ago, okay, plus. And when I came out, I had a loan, and the rate was nice and low. It was like 3%. And you got X number of months, you know, forgiveness. Well, X number of months as a break, and then you had to start paying it back because they wanted you to like get a job and be able to pay it back and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, the rates had gone up by then. And so like, I didn't want to pay it back any faster because, hey, 3% was a great loan. And so you go through that process. But then you look at this loan forgiveness thing, and there are people that have blue collar jobs that are going, hey, I didn't go to college. I couldn't afford to take on the debt, but I had to buy a, you know, $80,000, $90,000 truck to be able to do the work that I need to do. And no one gives me any break on that debt, but that's the same debt to be able to earn a living, sort of like having a student debt to be able to go out and get educated and earn a living. So why don't I get a break? Why don't I don't get a deal here? You know, so, and I totally get that end of things also. And then there are people that actually went out and said, you know, my student loan debt's kind of high. I can get a lower rate now. So I'm going to go ahead and refinance, which is like financially responsible thing to do. And then someone turns around and goes, hey, if you have a student loan, guess what? We're going to give you forgiveness. And it's like, well, you know, I tried to do the right thing and reduce my rate, and now I'm getting screwed, you know? So yeah, you're kind of the person I'm thinking about, Ashlee. So, but I mean, there's just a lot of pieces that are moving around here.
Ashlee.
Yeah, I just think that it's just such a massive, like, brick that's been put on. I mean, the millennial generation was told that, like, if you don't go to college, you will not get a good job. Like, it was like struck fear of God into us that, like, you're, you know, trash if you didn't. And so now I have a fantastic anatomy degree that's really paying off in my field.
You were an anatomy major?
I was an anatomy major. I was going to go to med school, and then I was like, that looks like a lot of debt. I don't want to do that. A lot of debt and a lot of stress. So but I still have student loans. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not. Yes, it sucks that I did refinance and I wouldn't qualify, but also, like, I don't know. I'm the socialist of the bunch, and like let everyone, give money to everyone. So I don't know. I think that it could be beneficial for sure. And if you're bitter about it, like, fuck it, like, life's already not fucking fair. So just like let some people have less stress, I guess.
I can hear the thunderstorms around you.
Yeah, that's me.
That's Aaron,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's coming down.
Yeah, I have a funny story. Back in 2007, when I went to Illinois Tech, I was an F1 student, and in order to get accepted into Illinois Tech, I had to show that I have $25,000 in my bank account. I didn't have $25,000 in my bank account. I didn't have friends that had $25,000 in their bank account. And so what I did, it was really interesting. I got super lucky. I don't think I ever told this story. So I go to the school. I'm trying to get accepted. And I talk to the admission person or whatever, and we discuss, and they're like, yeah, if you don't have money, you should apply for a student loan. And I'm like, what is a student loan? She's like, well, you go to the bank and you get the money. And I'm like, huh, interesting. What a concept. And it was like $35,000, I think, a year tuition for undergrad. And so I did apply. I convinced one of my buddies' dad to co-sign. And then here's the lucky part. In 2007, the student loan was deposited to your checking account, not to the school. And then you do with it whatever you want to do with it. And so I was like, so wait a minute. If I get the money, it gets deposited in my bank account, I can like get the paper, go to admissions and show them that I have the money in my bank account. Because I don't have to show where I got the money from, right? And so that's exactly what happened. I got approved. Chase sent me $25,000, $25,700. I took the paper, went to admissions. They took the whole statement, and then I got approved for my F1 status. So sometimes I wonder if it wasn't for that, I would be already back in where I was born, which I'm not excited about. So I don't know. I have a very like a love relationship with student loans. I love student loans. Like I wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be for a student loan.
I have some more if you love them that much. I'll give you some.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. But my thought on this very quick is I think the government is looking at it from a wrong perspective. Like they should, back to Aaron, what you said, I think I 100% agree with you. They should look at why the education all of a sudden became a profitable business. And it's the only thing you can't get rid of your, what is it called? If you file for bankruptcy, like you can get rid of your medical bills. Right, but you can't get forgiveness on student loans. I think they created some pretty major scam when it comes to education. And so if the government, instead of doing forgiveness, if they went back and said, let's look into the administrative cost, because I bet that your education, when you graduated, Aaron, was even much better than what it is right now. And it costed less. Yep. So what happened in the meantime, it got skyrocketed more. Professors don't make any more money. You graduate with less skill, and now you're paying like 10 times more what you used to pay. And that's, I think, where they should focus on and spend their time instead of just doing the forgiveness, which is, I think, like a throwing a bone.
Yeah, I really, and I see this so we have a dental assisting school, and there are a number of them in the state. And the biggest one in the state, the one that has the most administration, et cetera, is 3 times more expensive than ours is, and has no hands-on at all, and yet they're charging these folks for this education that they're really not getting, and for what? For nothing, And they come out and they're underqualified, and they've racked up 3 times the debt that they would have coming to our course, and it takes a third of the time. Also, it's almost a year-long program. It's 3 times as much, and they don't learn anything. So this whole thing where education has gotten so much more expensive, and there's no responsibility. There's no culpability. There's no answering to anybody to make sure that these students are actually getting what they think they're getting. And this happens at the absolute worst time in your life, when you're the youngest and the most naive and the most trusting. And I just feel like people really get taken advantage of.
But even people changing careers, like Aaron, what if you're 55 and you decided to change career and you got doomed at 55? That's even worse. Like if you're 25, you still have time.
Sure. No, I understand that. But I mean, most of the folks that come through our program are younger. But yeah, I agree. You only have so much time to do that. Hopefully by 55, you're a little smarter about figuring out, is this worth it for me or not?
Right. Well, I don't think Brian and I are trending that way, but let's move on to the next subject. Speaking of debt, average dental education debt drops to $286K, which is a little contrary to what we hear every day, that my debt is ridiculous and it's growing. So this article claims that in the period of 2017 all the way to 22, the debt has dropped from $308,000 all the way down to $286,000. This is very interesting. Like, are people all of a sudden decided to pay off their debt as quick as possible and it's dropping, or is the cost of education dropping? What do you guys think?
My gut and the first cynical thought I had was, because as these individuals' parents get older, there's more parents who had the 529s to contribute to education, so they get to come out with less debt. Even though the cost is going up, they probably have this is pure speculation, but that's what my first thought was I wonder if these people now have a different generation. The parents who are coming in have been trained to save for education, and so these people have more to go towards education. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just what I thought of.
That's really interesting, because when I saw this article, I actually shot it out to Paul Goodman, who runs Dental Nachos and tends to have a very young audience. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And that was his exact comment. Do you think the parents are paying more and they know this is coming? And I'm like, really? You think that's what it is? But I don't know. I mean, it's 2017 and now it's like 5 years, and their numbers are pretty consistent in the low 300s. And then all of a sudden it drops into 286. So I have no idea.
When did it drop?
In 2022.
Yeah.
It's 308, 309, 308, 318, 305, 286.
Yeah. Look, like it started to go down in 2020 when everything got frozen. So then why, I started making payments again because I'm like, dude, it's an intelligent move. So it's interesting. It got frozen. You got parents who are getting more intelligent, and then it starts to drop. But there's a million reasons why. This is another one of those, like, I want to have a conversation with Beckers. I'm like, you guys put out little carrots, but you don't give any information.
Yeah, they probably expect us to go and read the whole report. Maybe I should by the next time, that ADEA report. Yes, Aaron.
I clicked on the data thing there, and it doesn't really tell you much. But the other thing too is this what they're graduating out of school with, or is this the average balances, or like what are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
It says dental education debt.
Yeah, what does that mean? Is that what they graduate with, or what they have left over, or?
There's not a dental school in this country that has lowered the cost.
Right.
Yeah.
So it cannot be that.
Imagine we wake up one day and it actually trending down, and then we actually end up at somewhere $150,000 to get your dental education on average.
It's going to be lower than that if we go to the value based. So ain't nobody going in.
I mean, I have a friend that says, the cure for high prices is high prices. It gets so high that it's unaffordable and people stop buying. And then, prices come down to start getting people interested. So I don't know if that's what's going on here, but my gosh, Brian, your story about a guy graduating with $1 million in debt, I just can't. I mean, how do you breathe after that? I don't understand.
Oh, what's really interesting too is that you guys, we talk about it when you're making these decisions, like you're young and you're naive. And I pulled up this report and this trends report, and the majority of people who are making decisions to go into dentistry, they have made the decision during high school.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know shit in high school. You know what I mean?
Because you have to follow your bliss.
They made the decision where their parents did.
Yeah.
Can I go to a dark place here for a second?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if I hope it doesn't sound wrong, but I'm thinking the first news that we read about the affirmative action. So if we have certain demographics looking into this, when most of your peers are making decisions at the high school level, and when you go back to your family and they don't even know how to manage the money, do you think they have any chance of like making a decision to go into $500,000 debt when their family doesn't have a clue how to manage that?
So here's the thing, though.
Even if they're smart kids, like how do we?
Here's the thing. So we had this. That article talked about the lowest numbers being Hispanic and Black.
Mm-hmm.
and this is how sad it is. I think there was like 4 at my dental school. Maybe a couple more. The majority of the ones that I know, actually all the ones that I knew at my school, were on a free ride. So you'd think...
So what does it mean?
I would think then... So 1, you're coming out with 0 debt. But 2, I'm like, dude, there are incredible scholarship programs, grants, all of this stuff for people with that background. And I'm like, dude, I would have thought, you'd be talking to your peers if I was that dude or that girl and being like, dude, guys, you get to do this job where you can make a very nice living and it's going to cost you 0 if you get the scholarships and the grants. Whereas all the other idiots like myself are coming out with like $400,000+ in debt.
Well, I think that their parents, though, they probably had to figure it out too, though, right? Like their parents weren't educated in how to apply for those grants and how to, manage that system. And that's the same reason I have debt. My parents were like, oh, that's what they do. Like, we didn't go to college. We, have blue collar jobs. And, oh, that's what we do. That's what I hear is that you apply for student loans. And it's probably similar. And yes, those programs are available, but, it's potential that their parents had no idea about them and they probably, I don't know, figured it out for themselves.
Certainly. I think that's a self-starter.
We should call this new sense dental new sense speculation because we speculate a lot.
but I agree with you. It's like their parents could have been just as ignorant and naive as ignorant, not in, in the not knowing sense, and naive as this 20-year-old or 22-year-old or 18-year-old or whatever. It's like, oh, dentists, they make a bunch of money. Cool. It's totally worth it going into debt. When you don't have any real numbers to put with that or any real financial education, because you don't get that in high school. And if you didn't go beyond high school, you're not getting it. Even in college, a lot of times you're not getting it. I mean, I learned about finances when I had to run a practice and then I had to figure it out. So, I was 28 at that point?
Yeah. A total segue. I mean, not a segue, a tangent. With my wife, we're watching the Netflix thing called How to Get Rich with Ramit Sethi. Just blows my mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool. I wish more people would watch it. Just like so simple, so basic. And he just had a thing where he talks about why you shouldn't buy a house. Imagine like everybody, it's such a common thing that people say you should buy a house and he just comes out and says you shouldn't buy a house. So yeah, I think like this whole financial education is supposed to get passed down from parents to kids, but it's not. Like the parents sometimes are as dumb as the kids.
I mean,
when it comes to money.
Yeah, I had a consultant years ago that said, if you look into the real cost of buying a home, it makes more sense to rent because you buy it, you service the debt, you have to do the repairs, then you do the upgrades. And if you just look at it over the life of owning it, it actually makes more sense not to buy the house and makes more sense to rent. Yes, it's
Are you saying I fucked up in this choice too?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But the thing he said at the end is like, here's the deal though. There's a sense of safety and ownership that you can't get from renting a house. And that's worth something, but it's really hard to quantify.
There was an article a few years back that I think in like New York Times and it was like, is owning a home actually an investment? And they took they took data from all over the country and then like put it over 20 or 30 years to see like how much it appreciates. And it didn't appreciate even as much as like if you would have just thrown some money in the stock market.
Yeah, but it's sort of like a forced savings plan because most people, if they're renting, they take that difference between renting and ownership, they blow it. They don't put it in the stock market. They don't invest it in anything. Whereas if you go ahead and buy a house, you have to make the mortgage payment if you want to stay. And so it's kind of like a forced savings plan. I mean, and that really became, the American dream after World War II. It's like, you want to own a home. And so it was a forced savings plan is basically what it is.
Yeah, that is such a bullshit in my opinion. Like the American dream is to start your own business and have a freedom to run your own business. That's the American dream. You can buy a house anywhere in the world, but to have a freedom to run your enterprise the way you want it and how you want it, that's the American dream.
And to be tied to your business for 19 hours a day and have to worry about it on the weekends.
Yeah, because you want to. You choose that. You choose that lifestyle.
I don't think you choose the lifestyle. I think you want the benefits, and it sucks you in, and pretty soon it eats up more and more of your time. I think
And I love that. And I fucking love that, Aaron. Like
That's
every
cool.
day. I have the bad days, but to me, that's the American dream, not the house. But I do agree that there's something associated with owning a house. And I think 2 people on this podcast own the house, and 2 people on this podcast are looking to buy a house. And so we'll see how that goes. We can have a separate episode about that. Any other thoughts on the dental education debt?
Yeah, last thing, I'm looking at this trends in dental education PowerPoint that they are referring to in this, and it was like the very last slide is dental careers offer professional autonomy, and there's like a fist and flexible work hours, financial and job security, people holding hands, opportunities to work as part of a healthcare team. I'm like, what? Who are you advertising to right now? Like,
and you should put a picture of Brian in the middle of that report, like literally his picture, so that it's like you can.
Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah.
If you have to stop sharing yours, and then I can.
I want to see this.
Yeah, it's cute. It's real cute.
And we lost Aaron on this subject.
He's going to make sure that his house isn't underwater.
ADA trends. Oh no, that's not it.
Make sure you close all the tabs that we shouldn't see, Ashlee.
It's not. It's. Oh, here we go. Oh my gosh! Never mind. It's gonna. Never mind. It's too sassy, but it's real cute. I'll send it over. You can pop it up or pop it in and share this with people. But it's real cute.
Awesome. All right. I think we should move on to the next one. And that is, we just did that. I think we should quickly touch on some of the legislation that was applauded. Speaking of enterprise and American dream, can you guys see my screen? Yep. Mm-hmm. So legislators applauded for introducing Main Street Tax Certainty Act of 2023. So it's pretty much a 20% deduction for small and individually owned businesses that was kind of floating around that it could expire, but now I think it was supposed to sunset in 2025, as they say here, and now I believe got permanently added, and so now we have this thing. Maybe, Aaron, can you touch on what does it mean, just like in a quick introduction, what if people don't know what that 20% deduction for small and individually owned businesses is?
Oh, you're going to call on me on this one? Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
I definitely read it. Would like to make permanent 20% deduction by the S corps and partnerships and souls, so small businesses. Deduction is they don't really tell you what the deduction is. It sounds like maybe you get to reduce your overall top line revenue by 20% before you start taking away the overhead, and then therefore you will pay less in taxes because you claim less on the top line. Is my guess.
I think it's so if you have a LLC or the S corp, you pretty much pass your expenses, personal business altogether, and then at the final, like whatever the final amount is left, only then you pay taxes. Kind of like I think it's called the pass through.
So you reduce the bottom line by 20% and then pay taxes on that. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. That's, I think, why accountants typically recommend for small businesses to have a S corp, or if you ended up in LLC, you convert that to the S corp.
Yeah, but I think the difference there has to do with paying both sides of the employment tax and that sort of thing. But yeah, I have an LLC, and we took an S corp election because that made more sense. But then we have 2 other LLCs that we did not take the S corp election. And I don't remember exactly why we did that. I mean, we had a long conversation about it, and I understood at the time, but it's hard for me to recreate that thinking.
Yeah. But I think it ties back to the point that we discussed earlier. I mean, there are so many advantages of owning a business. Like, all 4 of us own businesses, and I mean, God, just
but the
how
Main
beautiful that thing
Street
is.
The Main Street tax, this is just if you were financially impacted in 2020 and 2021, though, is when Main Street tax credit happened. And now what they're saying is they're making it permanent. Is that correct?
Uh-oh. So now someone went into the details, and now we have to look at it.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm reading is the Main Street Small Business Tax Credit is a bill that provides financial relief to qualified small businesses for economic disruptions in 2020 and 2021. Taxpayers can use the credit against income tax or make a irrevocable election to apply the credit against sales and use taxes. But if it's permanent, then hell yeah. Like you said, that's awesome. Own your own business. But I think the point is, no, just hell yeah. Own your own business. I love it.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of advantages to owning your own business. But there's a whole lot more responsibility. I mean, you can't just go in and clock your 8 hours and go home. You got to be responsible a lot longer than that, and always sort of be looking after it. If you put a great leadership team in place, that works out great, but you usually spend a lot of time and effort creating that, maintaining that, educating yourself about that. So there's a lot of extra effort that goes into owning your own business. Everybody thinks that you got it made. You can take vacations whenever you want. You can kind of call your own shots, and more often than not, you're more tied to the business that's generating your income than less as being an employee. But you do get more cash. So
if you're good at it.
Like you making that distinction, Ashlee. Because it was like all of the parents being like, yeah, get into debt. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ashlee, when you created your own gig, what was in the first year you had to file the taxes with your own business? What was the most interesting thing that they told you that you can write off?
This is a PG show, isn't it?
The most interesting thing they told me I could write off, or that I convinced my CPA that we should be able to write off?
I like number two. Number two.
Yes.
Well, I now own my home, and I have clients who come into Denver often where we have meetings. So my company rents my home from my company, or sorry, my company rents my home from my husband. And that's a pretty fun one.
So is this the Augusta rule that you guys are using?
Oh, I genuinely don't know what it's called.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely a rule. And it started in Augusta, Georgia around the golf tournament down there. And they said you could rent out your home for a certain number of times per year and not have to pay any taxes on that income from
yeah, I think that's it. Because it's, as long as it's under 14 days per year, then Davis isn't paying taxes on that income that my company rents the house from.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing, you can set any rate, but I think the only requirement was...
No, you can't, because I tried. You can't set any rate. It has to be you have to look at Airbnbs around you and do it comparable.
It's got to be a market.
Yeah, you can't do $5,000 an hour, but I mean, you can look comparatively. And what's interesting is you technically need to have a rental agreement. So a person creates a rental agreement, we've gone through it. But that was fascinating. I didn't know anything about that.
I also had to have a some type of standard procedure, essentially, that said this isn't for any client. They have to hit a certain amount of spend within my organization to be qualified for this perk. Then it's a live meeting with me at my home if they hit a certain amount of spend per year. My accountant was like, let's just have lots of outlined things that say that you are fitting these parameters. But yes,
Aaron, if you would have a meeting with your team, when you own a practice and you bring your team for I don't know, the team activity, right? Like a dinner.
Sure.
Would that count? Can you go and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So. We used to do that. Like over Thanksgiving, we would have a Friendsgiving. So we'd have all the staff out and bring something. We'd all have Thanksgiving together, or maybe we usually had a Christmas party someplace really cool. But we'd have some kind of an event for whatever. And you can do that. I think it's up to 10 times per year that you can do that.
Yeah,
But absolutely. You just need a little forethought. And the thing is, so much of the tax code is the documentation and writing stuff up right. As long as you have that, you're good to go.
yeah, I do agree. Brian, do you have anything else to add to this? Like, were you surprised the first time you had to file the tax returns, or an S corp or LLC?
No. I'm by the book, so.
Oh, please.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I do everything the correct way.
Yeah, well, we can tell that.
Why did Ashlee's head just like? Some people are comfortable in that gray area. I'm black and white.
Okay. 50 Shades.
Speaking about
Shades of
income,
black and white.
all right, let's stay on track. I think we're moving along pretty quickly. Dental insurance.
Tiger gets us off comment, and then he's like, "Come on, guys, back on track."
Yeah,
get there, guys.
He isn't. Serious, come on.
I actually didn't. I missed this one. You guys are going to teach me right now.
Yeah, dental insurance hub. It's always appropriate to report your full fee. According to ADA, they recommend, the ADA Council of Benefit Programs is recommending that it's always appropriate to report the full fee in the dental claim form for each service reported to a third-party payer. The question frequently asked of the ADA staff is, what fee should dentists put on the dental claim form? This gentleman, Mark Johnson, DDS chair of the council, said, my full fee or the plan's maximum allowable network fee, or the question. And the full fee is the fee for a service that is set by the dentist. I mean, I don't want to read the whole thing, but I think we got the gist of it. So what are the thoughts? And maybe Brian, you can lead with that, because I'm just curious. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should put your full fee. When you're running it through your software, the only thing is like it also comes into how are you doing your accounting, if you're cash or accrual. So it just depends how you're. From a business perspective, it depends on how you're looking at it, right? So like you want to put your full fee, but when you're putting it on, when it's documented, you want to actually know what you expect to have come back from the payer, because. I mean, I just don't want to see a whole bunch of adjustments. It gets hard to see what's an actual adjustment and what is, I would consider that like a fake adjustment. You're always putting out your, your UCR and then adjusting off what is paid, unless you're accrual and you want to try to claim that. This is all tax stuff. What is the basis of saying why you should put your full fee or not?
But what would be the case against it? Like, why would you not put a full fee when you send to an insurance or like you file the claim?
I don't know. I'm kind of actually asking that. Like, is that what are they saying that there's a reason that you should or should not? Is this about like what type of taxes, like how you do your taxes, or is it just saying?
It's just saying that you need to file a full fee.
I don't know. I don't even understand why it would be inappropriate.
Exactly. This is somebody not understanding how the system works. And the bottom line is, even every time that you file with your with different insurance carriers, you always file your full fee, and then you'll have to do the adjustments as appropriate. But you don't want to file less than your full fee, because then the insurance company's going, oh, well, you only charge this much, and then that goes into your into the way that they calculate what you should be reimbursed and that sort of thing. So you always want to file your full fee. I mean, I'm a fee-for-service dentist, and I know that you should always file your full fee if you're working with one of these reduced fee groups.
Ashlee, do you have anything to add on this? Like, have you seen people not file full fees? It's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about dental insurance. I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay. I think we should move on to the next one. That was kind of an interesting subject. All right. So
what I do find interesting, I will say then, is like it feels like these people are writing content just to make content, right? Like some of them are very clickbaity. You're like,
they did the clickbait, and I kind of bought their clickbait. So,
but it makes you think. You're like, wait, shouldn't I? Like it's interesting in that capacity.
This one I like.
Speaking of dental schools, we covered a little bit about the cost of the dental schools, but maybe that's why now the cost goes down of the dental schools, because we're using virtual simulators that help students feel their way from preclinical study to clinical experience. And dental schools worldwide have been transitioning to high-tech education tools, virtual reality, haptic simulators that enable students to get a real feel for what it's like to perform clinical procedures long before they treat patients in the clinic. And so they go into this explanation. And some of the upsides of using haptic technology as first and second year students, he said, is that it allows students to work in a 3D simulation that also gives them an actual feel of performing operative procedures, much like a flight simulator for airline pilots, giving them an interactive learning experience. What do you guys think?
So this is basically saying that they're switching their D1 and their D2, so their first year and their second year students, to doing more stuff in virtual reality. It's interesting. You read through it and it says that the dental students are like, oh, I'm so glad that I got to do this because I can actually feel what like caries in a tooth, what a cavity in a tooth feels like. I have no knowledge of this because I'd love to sit down with one of these and see what it actually is, like as a practicing dentist, to see if it comes close. I don't know how virtual reality could give you physical sensational feedback. Aaron, are you familiar with this at all?
All over the place?
So when I was in dental school, we used to have these ivorine teeth. And like if you're going to prep a class 2, they'd say, you can make a little hole here to simulate the caries. And so when you cut down to it, you can get that feeling of dropping into something. And that was a poor substitute at best. Something like this could be really cool. I mean, I know that for airline pilots, that the generation that grew up with like all the different PlayStations and that kind of thing, where they're used to looking at something and then doing inputs on a controller, like they are so much easier to get these guys trained up to fly instruments in airplanes because they're used to that whole thing where they're looking at instruments, looking at what it tells them, and then adjusting their feedback to get the result that they want. It would be super interesting to see if this, I agree with you, Brian. I would love to play with one of these and see, does it really feel like the real thing? Because if it does, that would be so cool.
So what I find interesting too is like, let me rant for a quick second because you guys never let me rant.
You only have 3 seconds.
I'm sorry. I want to put a couple of things together. So we were talking about the price of dental school going up because of the administration. When I was in dental school, I was in student politics and we were interviewing potential deans for our school. And then I met some people in the entire school, and they're like, dude, look, the dean of a school is really only there, and they get paid a boatload of money to do it, to generate money for the school, right? So this is your administration. They get paid a bunch of money to get a bunch of money into the school, and the way that they do it is they go sell technology. They're like, we're going to be the most state of the art. We're going to be the most state of the art. And that can go too far. And I feel like it's gone too far in a lot of schools. There are schools that kind of don't even practice taking traditional impressions to make dentures because you can do it digitally now. 99% of dentists out there don't practice that way. So there's danger in what you learn.
Mm-hmm.
I was first skeptical on that. And in an article that's kind of selling that this is a good point, to hear that a dental student is like, this is what caries really feels like. I'm like, you're a second year dental student. How do you know what it actually feels like? And then I think about like, well, when I was in school, the way that you felt what it actually felt like was before you go to school, they tell you to go fill up a bunch of jars of teeth, most of them being ones with cavities in them, and then you drill them out. So it's not like you're not getting the feel of it. It is a tooth with cavity in it. And it's a lot cheaper than buying these like, $1 million machines. So I'm not saying that it's bad. I just don't know anything about it. I think it'd be awesome. I just don't know how it would do it. I'm sure you could get to some pretty interesting scenarios in it, but like, I don't know. There's no substitute for the real thing.
Mm-hmm. So my thought is that, I mean, technology is just always changing everything. When I started working in the dental field, one of my jobs was to get dental assistant schools approved. That's part of when I first started working with Aaron, was on his dental assistant school. But at that time, though, too, that curriculum, and this was 11 years ago, that curriculum still had information on how to take X-rays and develop them with film.
Still does.
Yep.
Not in every state. Arizona doesn't have it. But that's what I'm saying, though, is that like we're transitioning out of that, and I just think this is a different iteration of that.
I agree with the like getting them really early in on it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like the simulator. The thing I don't like is I've talked to a lot of docs who've gotten out of dental school and never done a root canal on a real tooth. Like everything has been on models and this kind of stuff. And it's like, if you're charging somebody that much for dental education, for the love of God, at least give them the education. You know, they've never actually done the procedure on a real tooth.
The most expensive education you can get, NYU. And they graduate without doing, I've talked to graduates who have not done a root canal on a person, not done a crown on a person. Yeah.
Or, hey, we'll do a denture on this model. I mean, doing a denture is a pain in the rear. Like there's so many nuances. It's such a non-standardized thing. You have to kind of learn how to work with the patient and their expectations and what's going on with them. And to think that you can do that on some kind of a model or virtually is ridiculous. And some of these other things, crown and bridge and root canals, at least there's some solid parameters. But even with that, it's like, people are so different and teeth are so different person to person. It's like, you can't just take a standardized whatever and run them through it and make that work. Sure, D1, D2, that'd be great. Give them a little extra experience. I think that's wonderful. But by the time you get to like third year and fourth year, like you need to be doing it on real humans because those are the people you're going to be working on.
Well, the tricky thing nowadays, I don't know if you've looked, but like I've had patients come back to me too and like show me treatment plans from dental schools. There's so few patients that are going and everything has gone up. The price of everything has gone up. The prices at dental schools are no longer like the bargain that they used to be. So you're paying like a similar price.
If you go to a dental school clinic, you still pay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought they were free.
Mm-mm. And it's similar. It is still a little bit cheaper, but it's getting closer to what a dental practice would be. So why would you go to a dental school and take 6 months to get a denture when you can go to a dental office and have a dentist do it for the same price in a quarter of the time?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, the thing was it's going to cost you a third as much, but it'll take you 3 times as long. So is your time more valuable or your dollars more valuable? If your dollars more valuable, you go to the dentist. If your time's more valuable, you go to the dentist. If your dollars more valuable, you go to the dental school. It'll take you 3 times as long, but you'll get a great product. Now, the cost is almost the same, but it still takes 3 times as long. So why would you do that? I'm with Brian 100%.
So that's why you look at a place like NYU, they switched to, and you got to think about the amount of students there. So the amount of patients needed to supply them with an actual education of doing all of these procedures on patients. And I'm not ripping on NYU, but I am. It's nutty, dude. It's nutty. So they switched to a model that they say is like, we're going to go a comprehensive care based model. So you're given 3 patients and you have to work through whatever they need. So if you had a patient that needed crowns and a removable denture, you do that. If you have 3 relatively healthy patients that need some fillings, maybe like you extract a wisdom tooth and that's it, you did your work to graduate. And then the rest of that is you need to generate a certain amount of points based off of essentially dollars. So you have to generate a certain amount of revenue, but you can do that with like cleanings and sealants and whatever it takes to get through your graduation fastest. And then you are donned to be a dentist. It's not like 10 crowns, 16 extractions, 3 dentures. I don't know. That's how I graduated. I don't know about you, Aaron, but like we just had just a straight 30. You got to do 32 crowns before you can graduate.
Yep. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. And that's why I talk to docs every day. And they're like, I'm out of practice. I'm an associate and I can't generate enough production to be able to create income for myself so I can pay my bills. Well, of course they can't, because they didn't get the experience in doing these different procedures. So now they're basically learning in the dental practice on live patients who are paying them real dollars, which is unfair to the student, to the owner doc, and to the patient. I mean, there's nothing good here.
The more I listen to you guys, the more I feel like something is so fundamentally broken. Like the cost goes up. Patients don't have any reason to go to a dental school for a treatment. They bring you all these simulators that should simulate, but maybe it is and maybe it's not. And you graduate and you like lost because you probably don't know how to do half of the procedures. And then in order for you to be successful, because then it's the real life, especially if you go to DSO, you need to have the skills and you need to be fast and you need to learn. And all of a sudden you're going to be so like emotionally pressed because there will be so many demands and you just can't keep up with it. And then what do? You go to like Dominican and you do mission trips all the time just to learn, or like what?
Yeah, I mean, that helps some, but here's the other thing that's a real problem. There's a lot of times you have guys that are coming out of school and what they're looking at is multiple practice ownership or owning a practice and having a bunch of associates work for them. They get in, they work a few years, they decide to do this thing. Who's training the associates? This doc isn't really competent yet. And within 5 years, they're already hiring associates and et cetera, et cetera. It's like the state of practice is going downhill. Someone needs to step in and say, hey, like we need to have a high standard for the work that we're doing. I mean, you guys know that I teach courses, and this is one of the reasons I teach courses. It's like, guys, someone needs to step in here and go, this is the way you do this thing, and explain that to them. Because when you've gone through dental school and you just stay as an instructor, you have no real life experience. So I graduated 86, 87. All of my instructors were these old Navy docs and Army docs who've been in for forever. They retired after 20, 30 years. They needed something to do. They came to the dental school. They worked a little bit. But their experience was real world and was pretty amazing. And that's the education we got. Now, a lot of the times, I feel like they're not getting that education. They're getting virtual. They're getting folks that came through and want to teach, but they don't really know enough to teach if they haven't been in the real world for 3 to 5 years. I mean, I just don't see where you could be good enough to be able to have that much to give unless you've got to have some real world experience. You just do.
Yeah, you also look at a lot of the guys that teach and they have been teachers. They haven't been private practice.
Right.
And and they'll show you pictures of their work and you're like, yeah, I don't doubt that your work is spectacular because it took you 3 fucking hours to do a DO composite. Try to do that in private practice.
Yeah.
See what happens.
At PPO fees. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
It is, dude. Tiger, I think the word that you were looking for is fucked. Something is fucked.
I was trying to avoid it and be politically correct, but it is definitely trending in that direction. Let me just put it that way.
But it is, and I don't want to be doom and gloom. I do think that there's a lot of people out there that have things to offer, and they get associates and they get to train them, and they're good at what they do, and they take the time to do it, and you got to learn how to do it right, which is what dental school should be. Mm-hmm. And when you get out, and this is honestly, I think New York was taking a step in the right direction. That's like, to practice in New York, you have to do a residency. It might only be 1 year, but you have to, because you're not ready after dental school. I think most students, I think there are some students that put in a lot of work, and they will be, but I think they took a step in the right direction that like, you got to do a residency, and a residency does force you to become a little faster. You have to diagnose a little faster. You have to work a little faster, but you still have people that are teaching you. You're starting to learn some advanced techniques, So I honestly wouldn't be opposed, and I'd be shocked. Dental school 6 years, or you have to do a residency. Like, it's the repetitions that you don't get. And like Aaron said, it sucks for it's not fair for anyone, and life's not fair, but it's not fair for the doctor coming out of school because, dude, they just get tossed in and you got to figure this out. It's not fair, certainly for the patient. And what we're doing is for patients. They're paying cash, and they got some dude who's never done a crown. You're the first one, and they're plopping down $700.
Yeah.
So there are good people out there. There's good groups. There's good solo docs that are willing to teach.
The only problem I see with 6 years is the cost. Like, imagine if a dental school goes to 6 years, all of a sudden instead of a $500,000 loan, you're going to have like 750, 800. Like,
Yeah. Puts
they're
us
happy
back
to
into
take
the
your money
education
and rack it up.
conversation.
Yeah,
Shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah, it should not be a part of dental school, because when you do a residency, I didn't do a residency, but Brian told me when you do a residency, you usually get paid not much, but something. Is that true or not?
Okay. Yeah, you're not negative. You're not negative.
So,
I mean, you don't have much, you're not going out on the weekends, but
yeah. So I don't want to see this become a part of dental school, and that just makes a bigger problem. I think making it, hey, you have to go to a residency now. At least they're getting a few bucks, and they're getting the experience, and they're still getting trained. Mm-hmm. I think that's a much better model than extending dental school, because after 4 years of dental school, we still don't have a product we're happy with. And if we then hone it in residency, okay, that moves us in the right direction. But I think
there's a deferment. There's a deferment that you can take. There's two different types of deferments, and I can't remember what they are. I had to use one of mine up to go to residency. If there was a third type of deferment that was just like, this is going to be part of your education, you're getting, I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't do this. You're probably more likely to pay your loans back faster if you come out like at full speed. But if there was a third type of deferment that was like, this is the residency deferment, you're not making enough money to pay us back anyway, but you're getting better at what you do. And when you get out, you still get your like emergency deferment. And then you're just like, I could use this whenever I want deferment.
Interesting. All right. Ashlee, do you have anything to add on this?
No, I think I was looking ahead at the next article, which I think plays into this too, which is the mannequins.
Yes. I'll let you lead that one since you already looked into it.
So what they're saying here, right, is that they're going to start using mannequins in exams for new docs in North Carolina. And there's this line here. I'm kind of focused on that there's something fundamentally broken, right? So there's this line here. It says, the mannequin exams have proven to be as rigorous as those on live patients, with more students failing than those who do skills assessments on real people. And my first thought is, are we proud of that? Like, we want them to fail? Like, this is a good sign?
They do, because tests cost a lot of money.
And that's the dental schools make sure the student is ready to take on the test in the profession, and the state board is another safety net. And I don't know, that just kind of that's where I am, is the broken thing. You know, something is broken if you're like, yeah, these students are failing. This is rigorous. We're doing a great job. Like, that's where my first thoughts are.
And why are they failing? I mean, we don't even know that rigorous part of that.
So I'm a huge, I hate that these tests are even really a thing. Like, your schools should be able to deem that you're capable or not capable. And if you're not, keep them back. I'm definitely opposed to testing on human beings. I was when I was in dental school, because I was watching just all the shit that happens. It's so crooked. You have dentists selling patients to dental students. You have patients going into school and blackmailing their testing student for money because they know how important it is. And then on top of that, you have a student whose entire career is hinging on this test. The amount of pressure, you shouldn't be under that amount of pressure. You're not that good at doing fillings. Now you got some kid shaky hands the whole freaking time. Like, it's not cool. It's not cool. And I saw it again because when I went to Texas, I had to take the revs again. And you would see students in the hallways crying, breaking down. I mean, like, it's not that amount of pressure should not be put on like a test in that way, in my opinion. And if it is, it sure as shit shouldn't be on a human being. It should be on a fake tooth.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
The reason this process even exists was because there were dental schools back in the day, and then they wanted to make sure that, you know, these dentists were competent. So then they had regional exams to make sure they were competent. But then after that, at some point, they started to certify the schools themselves. So now you almost have like a double certification process, and one is and it's kind of a leftover from years ago. And it's like, well, let's pick one. Let's decide. Where do we need to go to make sure that these people can do what they say they can do, and let's get rid of the other one. And to boot, then you have just like for you, Brian, you practice in New York. You want to go to Texas. Now you have to retake the exams. How many years were you practicing dentist before you went to Texas?
11 years, teaching at a residency program for 6 of those years.
Right. So obviously you need to be tested to be sure that you're competent to come down and work on people in Texas, which is just annoying. It's ridiculous.
Dentistry doesn't change from state to state. It's just a fucking business is all it is. Look at like Florida. Florida doesn't participate with any of them. We had students in our class who were like, I'm going to Florida. And they're like, I'm not going to take that stupid course because it costs like 13 grand to take this course or something. And everyone's like, nah, but if you don't take the course, you don't pass the test. Come to find out, the guy who runs the course is also in charge of the dental board there. Like, anything wrong with that? It's freaking nuts. You shouldn't test on human beings. I mean, maybe this is back to like, we're calling for dental school reform. It'll never happen. But like, graduate people who know what they're doing. You go through all this accreditation as a school. I went through it when I was in like student politics there. It's insane. It's the finest tooth comb I've ever seen. After that process, how are you not allowed to just graduate and be like, I'm going to go practice in this test? Maybe you learn some of the rules in that state. That's a whole nother conversation. Like, why can I give somebody a pill in New York and I can't in Texas unless I pay another $5 grand?
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, you even have like Delaware where they don't, well, at least back in the day, they didn't accept certain parts of the national boards. You had to take it there. And it's a really tight state to get into. Once you're a dentist there, life is great. But then if you ever want to get an associate or sell a practice, it becomes tough again. So, and there are states that just kind of, they put themselves out to make sure that they protect their people. But it doesn't, it has nothing to do with the quality of dentistry, which I think is the most annoying to us as practitioners. Because if you want to say it's politics, okay, it's politics. But don't give me that stuff about, we want to make sure we're going to protect our public. That's not what it is.
I failed. So the day before I left for Texas, I did 6 root canals, 6 crowns. So 6 through 11 on a human, paying money. I went to Texas. I failed because I had a sealer puff on my endo, which is like it's like glorious when you get it on a human being, but on Rebs, it's a fail. And I was like, oh, well, shit, I didn't know that. So I went to retake it, and I just asked the students there, I'm like, yo, so what's the like thing? And they're like, oh, just access it, get a 60 cone and shove it in there. You're fine. It's not even real. It's not real dentistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want sealer puffs every time I do a root canal, so I know that sealer is down there. And I've been practicing for 30 some years, and you know what? It works great. I don't get it. I mean, when I was in school, it was like, it wasn't a big deal to have a sealer puff. Now it seems like it's out of favor. I'm sure it'll come back in another 10 to 15 years. It's just kind of the way things are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out how they start the articles. The article, they say North Carolina's dental profession sometimes gets blamed for being too reluctant to make any changes to laws defining who can practice dentistry. It's like such a stab at like the entire dental industry to begin with, is like too reluctant and not willing to change the laws, and all of a sudden they're trying to change it. So
with their point too, they're like case in point, they're not letting dental hygienists have their own practices. Well, it's not just like let everyone do what they want to do.
Yep. All right. Anything else on this one?
Yes. So the other thing on here is they're making it easier for dentists to come in and get instructor licenses because they're having trouble getting docs to come in and be instructors. So
instructors meaning at the schools or instructor?
Yes, at the dental schools. So, it's one of they don't pay docs in dental schools enough, which is why they don't get like really, and not against anybody who's in a dental school teaching or anything of that sort. But it's like, it's something that people tend to do if they're really passionate about education, or, hey, I've practiced for X number of years. I want to like kind of sit back. I'd like to teach the next generation. That's what you tend to get, which is nothing wrong with that either. Okay. But it's kind of one of those things where we know all dental school instructors are underpaid. And so because we're underpaying them, because we have a tough time getting them, we're going to make it easier for people to teach in our state, which just, it just seems an odd way to try to get more people to come in. Yeah, attract.
Aaron, question for you. So you sold your practice. You've been doing dentistry for 30 years.
Yep.
What would it take for, I don't know, what dental school in Maryland, in Baltimore, would get you on board to teach kids dentistry? Like, what do they need to do?
So I actually looked into teaching at the dental school in Maryland, and they wanted you to be a part of a program that they had. They wanted you to come in for like staff meetings. If I taught anything, they wanted to have a lesson plan approved 2 or 3 weeks before I taught it. They wanted to have all these controls over things. And it's like, you guys haven't been out practicing dentistry in the real world. I just find this to be a little oppressive as far as you want to control everything that happens, but you have no experience in what I'm trying to teach. Or I even wanted to come in and talk about business, and they didn't want that. They didn't want anyone coming in and doing that. It's like, guys, you've not been in a practice. You don't know what's going on here. So I do teach. I teach out of my office. I teach out of another office in Denver. I have an online course for young docs. I teach, and I teach things that I think will help docs, and they keep coming back and referring their friends, et cetera, et cetera. So I know that what I'm teaching is valuable. But to go into a dental school, now you're really within like an institutional setting. And I don't know that I'm really cut out for an institutional setting. And maybe that's the biggest difference for me and why I couldn't decide to go into the dental school and jump through the hoops they wanted me to jump through in order to do that. I mean, we took students recently to the Dominican Republic as a part of a program there. And, I had numerous meetings. I had a meeting about student safety. I went through all of these things, and I understand that they have to look out after the students, and they really need the CYA for sure, because you never know who, if they have a problem, is going to turn around and try to sue you. And I get that 100%. And at the same time, I think that we're just in a situation in America where everything is so litigious, and everybody's looking out for, if there's any sort of small issue at all, for someone to blame, that it just clogs the whole system and then creates a result that we don't really want and that we're not really happy with.
I think it's a shame that a school can't get you to teach the next generation. Like what you mentioned before, that you learn from all these Navy SEALs and Army guys, and you can't pass that knowledge down to the next generation. That sucks. That just sucks.
I mean, for me, it's like I owned a practice and practiced for 33 years. And it's like my biggest impact in life now is not me doing it with my two hands. It's being able to pass that knowledge on to someone else. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But I couldn't do it with the context of what they want.
Yeah, objectively, it's not on you. I'm trying to pick on schools. I think objectively, it would have been a lot more. It would have been a bigger impact if you were associated with a dental school where there there are a lot more students that are going through and they're learning how to become a dentist. Like,
I agree.
It just would have been a much bigger impact.
Yeah,
I would say it's also because dental schools, I don't think have, this is just my opinion, they don't have the time to teach you how to do things differently than one way. And the one way that they're trying to teach you is like, you have to do it this way so you don't hurt people. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the amount of time that they have. Teach you how to do dentistry just to not hurt someone.
I agree.
What Aaron is really good at is private practice dentistry, efficiency. How do I do this for my patient? Like, it's all the things that you would want to do as a private practice dentist. But I could make an argument that like anything outside of the box is going to mess with the heads of the students. That's why I think I'm an advocate for residency, because Aaron, you could go to probably any residency program and they'd love to have you. Like I would show them my lectures. I never had one person ever say anything about my lecture. They're like, dude, come in, teach what you want. What do you want to teach?
Yeah, I say frequently that, dental schools have a very short period of time and they're taking you from civilian to not being dangerous. But from not being dangerous to like you're profitable and efficient in practice, that's another step. I mean, it's like
four steps.
Yeah.
Sure.
My slight disagreement, if you don't mind, is the box that you say that they need to give you just this one way of doing things and they can't fit anything else in that box. I do agree with you on this when it comes to business skills. Like, we all know people that are trying to advocate that dentists need to get educated on the business sense of things, of dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to people in academia about this, and they're like, we don't even have time to teach people how to do basic stuff within these 4 years to get them out of the dental school and they can learn on their own. I tend to now agree that business stuff they will learn later, but the clinical stuff to learn one way, the other way, and 3 ways and triple ways, I think that should be part of it. That's where I slightly disagree with you, Brian, is like, I wish they would have curriculum that teaches them to do like all these things clinical wise within 4 years, then the residency. And then the business stuff, that's outside of the box they can learn later, even if they want to, because now we're getting to the point where it's a lot more better to be an associate and make enough money that you don't even need the business skills. You're going to be on a clinical for the rest of your life, just learning clinical stuff.
Yeah, it's just time and repetition, and I just don't think they get it in dental school. And it's hard, like you could counteract that argument by saying, like, why wouldn't they have somebody who's actually done it come in, where like any student could watch a YouTube video and be like, I'm going to try this way, right? So it's like that all the information's out there. You can get it all. I think just my clinician hat going on is like, you got to do it enough times one way to like see that it's a successful result that is reproducible. And I think that's what dental schools are trying to do. They're like, just hone in on this thing. Just do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, so that when you get out, you at least have one way that you know works. And then you can add on top of that the other stuff. I agree with you. I just don't know in today's dental school, like how that gets worked in. It's cool. They should at least teach. There's other ways, right? Like you shouldn't be so focused that you have to do it this way, because if a situation arises that you can't do it that way, then you're like, well, I have no options. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a dangerous place to be. But
yeah, Aaron,
I don't know how we do it.
I was going to say, Brian, that's super interesting to me, because when I was in dental school, it was always like, oh, you could do it like this. We have these things. You should try this out. You should try that out. And which I think is you end up getting your efforts dispersed in a lot of different directions. And when I teach, what I tend to teach is like, do it my way. I know that you have a way of doing it, and I don't want you to add my stuff to your stuff. Just learn to do it my way. And because we know this works. And then go ahead and start swapping out pieces that you think you like better or that might work better for you, and then see what your results are. If they're better, cool, keep them. If they're worse, great. You have a way of doing it that makes it work. But that's so interesting that when you were going through school, they said, this is the one way to do it. And it just didn't happen to be a very efficient way of doing it. Is that right?
I think we had instructors that would like let you get out of the box. So I certainly tend to work with people who had a different way of doing it, so that I could learn some new ways. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of dental education now is dogmatic. And I've gone through a couple of the bigger curriculums, that are all outside of, and it was funny because I was always the guy that was raising my hand, like, but what if this? But what if that? And they're like, just do it this way. Just do it this way.
I would have never guessed.
But it's interesting, it's like it's probably something in education that ebbs and flows. I think it's cool that you do that, because it's like you're getting a group of people who have maybe seen failures or had hard times because they're trying to do a whole bunch of different things. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me, because you're like, dude, you guys are all over here. Like, bring it in, right? Like, simplify, find some steps, and you can go back to trying it, but that's wise, right? Like, you can always go back to the way that I did it because we know it works.
Right. And that's the thing is, most of what I teach and most of what most people teach is out there on YouTube. It's absolutely out there. But the thing is, it's not a dearth of information. It's a dearth of wisdom. And when do you incorporate which thing? And how do you have a system that works? And so it's not information. We have a ton of that. But what we need is wisdom. And that's what you get from experience and reps. And if someone can help impart that to you, then you're in much better shape than you were just having a bunch of information and trying to sort through it all and figure out what's the right way to do this thing.
Yeah, we need a lot more Aaron time. We need the wisdom to make sure that everybody knows how to live life. All right, let's move on to the next one.
But it sucks because you'd have a lot more of that in an educational setting.
Let's go to the next one, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I would like to skip all the legal stuff and crime and dentistry section to leave it till the end, as Brian suggested at some point last month in Pennsylvania, or Cranberry, Pennsylvania. So that would be the last episode. But let's quickly go through some of the stuff. Since we're talking about the dentistry, there's this article that says ADA says dentists need to accept value-based care as inevitable. And, they go into a firestorm erupt last month with an editorial published in the Journal of American Dental Association titled Value-Based Care in Dentistry is the Future Here, by this interesting guy, the chief economist, the president, blah, blah, blah. And so the Wharton School, I mean, these are smart people. So reduce healthcare costs under the rubric of lowering per capita healthcare costs in the U.S., which are stated to be the highest in the world. These people argue that dentists must bear their part of the burden of lowering these costs by eventually accepting population-based payments, or, in other words, capitation from their insurers. Unfortunately, of the $12,318 per person per year spent on healthcare here, these two gentlemen say do not provide a percentage amount that accrues to personal dental care. So it's difficult to determine if dentistry is partially to blame for this spending. Prevention but control patient behavior. While value-based care tends to focus on prevention, which is a good thing, it also focuses on rewarding outcomes that obviously have much to do with patient behavior, particularly in dentistry. One can be, Aaron, we'll take a deep breath. One can be there every evening to brush a patient's teeth or stop them from drinking that big gulp, especially Medicaid-eligible children. What a way to call people out. Already being done in Texas Medicaid. Medicaid provides in Texas have already been started down this road back in 2018 with at least one provider agreeing to a value-based contract. Bring it a step closer. I don't want to read it, the whole thing, but I want to get going on this and see what you guys think. Maybe start with what is the value-based care? Can we start there? Because I don't think I fully understand what that means.
Go ahead.
If you open the JADA full article, it talks about patient-centered care, focus on prevention, evidence-based practice, integrated care, and then continuous improvement. Those are the 5 things they're focusing on and saying that this is value-based care.
I still don't get it, but I'll listen to you guys.
Value-based care puts the patients at the center of the care delivery process. Okay, duh.
Right. So what?
Dental care providers must take the time to understand patients' unique needs, preferences, and goals for their oral health. Do you guys do that now?
Do I talk to my patients? No.
Oh, I know, right? Do you use evidence-based practices? It's just so interesting that I don't know, like what they were getting at here, and they're like, it's inevitable. I just think it's
what they're saying is that the costs are going up, and they don't want to be spending as much, and that everyone should be taking capitation programs.
When you say they, who are they? Dentists or these two gentlemen that wrote the article?
It says the ADA.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, you look at this and you go, okay, this sounds great. But, the truth of the matter is, if I'm going to get paid the same for 15 different people, and the first person brushes and flosses and takes care of things, they barely have any plaque, and, they're super healthy, and the other one won't brush, won't floss, drinks big gulps all day long, and sodas, and rots all their teeth out, and we have to do full mouth extractions, and we're going to do an all-on-4 fixed hybrid denture. Those are 2 very big differences in the cost and the time it's going to take me to treat these patients. When I was early on in practice, I took some capitation plans, and the deal was you got paid X number of dollars a month, and you did all the fillings for free, and then you got a certain number of dollars for crowns and for root canals and things like that. And I had the first load of patients come through, and this woman had a bunch of composite fillings, and all of them had decay around them, every last one of them. And they're right on her front teeth, and you could see them, and they look terrible. And she had transferred from another dentist. And she goes, I go every 6 months. I'm like, really? Okay. What did your other dentist tell you about these dark spots around the fillings? She said, well, he said he wasn't really sure what was going on with those, but if they got bad enough, they go ahead and do crowns. And that's what tends to happen with these health-based systems is that we decide it's healthy until it's economically feasible for us to go ahead and do more work. And so it doesn't really work. I'm sorry.
You mean it's not patient-centered? So the other thing that they mentioned in here is they said there was a dentist in Texas who had signed up for a program. And I remember they tried to implement this program in hospitals in New York, which was like your compensation is based on the health of your patients. And they were trying it first with like primary care patients or primary care doctors. And they were going to try to be specific and use it with their diabetic patients. And so they're like, if your patient's health increases, you'll get compensated more because you're doing better. You're a better doctor. And it's like, wait. You see this person once every 3 months. Like you have such profound thoughts to this patient that they stop drinking soda. Like I had a patient one time and I took her blood sugar and I'm like, dude, you have to go to the hospital right now. And she's like, no, it's not bad. I go dancing every Saturday. I'm like, what? Like this is the thought that you have? Like, how would I ever influence that patient? So therefore I would get paid $0 for seeing this patient because their health is not increasing. So I don't know if you saw that in there, but like that was another thing is they're saying like there could be compensation that is based on how healthy you get your patients. That's not a thing.
Right. So, Brian, it's really interesting that you said this because this is indicative of a bigger problem in society in general. And that is that people don't have to feel the consequences of their actions. So if I'm gonna drink a bunch of sugary stuff, if I'm not gonna treat my body well, if I'm not gonna do whatever, and now I have to go get treatment because of the things I've done, and then I don't have to pay that consequence. Someone else pays it. Well, why should I change? And this is the litigation that we have in society. It's the way that things go. It's always somebody else's fault. It's like, hey, guess what? You get the consequences of your actions. And maybe the nicest thing we can do for people is to allow them to feel the consequences of their actions so they then can change and get the consequences they really want. But instead, what we do is we mitigate that and we subsidize it and we made someone else responsible. Talking about brain damage, if you're a doc and you are responsible for the health of a patient and you're going to get paid based on whether they do the right thing or not, I'm going to get paid based on things I can't control. How can I not get brain damage? I want a free therapy the rest of my life if you're going to make that the case.
I don't even want to work on paying patients who don't own their problem. Like Absolutely. When someone comes in, I'm sure you've had this. They're willing to pay for a full mouth rehab.
Yep.
And yet it is still not their problem. It's the last doctor and the doctor before and the doctor before and this happened and that happened. And I'm like, dude, I don't even want to do this. You can pay me as much as you want. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like own your freaking problem.
Yeah. And they'll pay for it every 5 years and it's still not their problem. Yep. Absolutely.
I think it's part of American culture though.
100%. I agree.
Like if you look at the diet, right? Like go outside of dentistry, right? And then just we're the most obese, we're the most diabetic because, I remember one of my first culture shocks when I came to United States is Dunkin' Donuts. That thing is so much sugar that anything I've tried before was not even close to it. Not even close. And we're just eating and there are no standards for how much sugar you can have. Other countries at least trying to have certain limits for the food people to make sure they don't exceed that number of sugar, right? So like when they make stuff, but then here it's just a problem. And I remember I was at one of the conferences. I went to a dental conference in Alabama, and it was probably the most stark disconnect I've ever seen between the South and the North. It's like we're in Alabama, and you can imagine 400 people. It's hygienists, dental assistants, and then there's little petite woman from Portland talks about the diet. And like in 10 minutes, she talks about how she never had Coke. She like all this green tea type of thing, which is phenomenal. And then in 10 minutes, she takes a pause. She's like, I want to ask some questions. Or I want to see if you guys have any questions. And I can see that no one has any questions about avocados and greens and cucumbers. And as soon as she takes the pause, somebody cracks the can of Coke. And it was so loud, and everybody's burst into a laugh. And the funny thing, that room for breakfast, all they had was Coke and Dunkin' Donuts, or Krispy Kreme. That's it. Nothing else. And they had a woman talk about the diet. And nobody gave a shit. And I'm thinking, you know what? This country is phenomenal. Like, literally, these people are sitting in the room, nothing against them. They just know that the healthcare is going to get to the point where they're going to go see the doctor. They will cut them up, sew them up, give them a pill, and say, take that for 30 days. You're good to go. Get out of here. That's it. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I have so many patients that have had knee replacements, and I just wonder over and over, could some real physical therapy and exercise have cured this without them having to have their knees replaced?
That takes effort, though. That takes a long time.
Yeah.
Would you guys like to hear what the JADA article says that are the steps dental care providers can take to navigate value-based care?
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
Please.
Bring it in.
So excited.
Step number 1, embrace it. Just embrace it. Step number 2, be prepared. Start amassing a clinical knowledge base. Are you guys, is this new information?
Like you didn't have it before.
This is eye-opening for me. Go ahead.
Number 3, lead it. You can't afford to sit on the sidelines. Dentists need to lead and shape this movement. And finally, the last thing you can do is be an early adopter. Yes, you're welcome. You are welcome.
I can imagine Brian singing in his practice and literally shaping this movement with his hands.
Hang on, where is this published? Because this is such drivel. Like,
this is
I could get anything published in this publication. What is this?
This is the Journal of the American Dental Association.
Yeah. Yeah. That answers my question that I asked you guys in the first episode. Where's ADA when it comes to helping private practices?
This is such drivel.
Where's the ADA in like the dental landscape? Like I'm done. I'm going to behave myself.
Tiger, I think you've broken us all on this one. I think we're just broken on this episode. We're just done.
Yeah, we're done. All right. Do you guys want to do last month in Pennsylvania and we're done?
Sure.
All right.
I just read more, but we're just gonna keep. I can't. We gotta keep going because.
No, I think let's do this one and let's wrap it up. I think this, when it comes to all these legal stuff, I mean, obviously there were some robberies and former employees charged 6 months for dental frauds. I mean, that's just continued to happen, right? It's not just Pennsylvania. And again, like I said last time, it probably we're affecting some of that too with our very popular podcast.
The shocker here, it wasn't in Pennsylvania, it was in Florida.
No way.
Crime in Florida?
The Pennsylvania of the South.
Have you guys ever looked up Florida man and then put in your birthday?
No.
Dude, come on. Do that. As soon as we hang up, do that. Screenshot it to the rest of us.
It's kind of like your horoscope. It tells you a lot about,
The best game ever.
What is it? You type the name in a birthday. What do you do? You type
in a Google search bar, you type in Florida man August 10th and see what happened in Florida on that day on your birthday. And it's a real treat.
I'm just going to, I'll read you the first one that comes up with my birthday.
Okay.
The first two, because they're that good. Florida man arrested after girl hit with flagpole during street corner pro-Trump rally. And then the second one is Florida man gets probation for picking up and transporting 41 turtles.
Did it say where he was transporting 41 turtles?
Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
Right.
Florida man arrested after throwing glass eye. Yeah, dude, it's a gift that just keeps on giving.
Let's go.
Florida man wrecks liquor store and blames it on the caterpillar.
So good.
All right. I would like for you guys to comment on this one. Let's go. Yeah. And we're going to wrap it up with this. So, dentists file lawsuit against the North American Dental Group. It's probably one of the unique lawsuits. A group of dentists has filed a lawsuit against the Pittsburgh-based North American Dental Group and its parent company, Zonparent. The legal action was filed in Delaware with the goal of gaining insight into management decisions the dentists say changed their ownership value in the company and may have negatively affected their retirement and other financial support, according to the news. The group asserts in the action that the DSO cannot withhold information that is reasonably necessary to evaluate the value of their equity interest or to assess potential legal claims related to their minority ownership. The dentists are seeking documentation of transactions from the last 12 months that involved the issuance of additional units that diluted their equity position. North American Dental Group supports more than 240 locations in 15 states, which I think is interesting to me when I read this article. It's a big negative towards the DSOs when people consider DSO versus a private practice. So I wanted to see what's your take on it. Maybe, Brian, you can lead us in this discussion.
It's interesting. I think that you look at a group that, what was it, 240?
240 locations, 15 states.
Yeah, a group that's that good has lawyers that are going to cover their bases. And so it sounds like someone's pissed off that they kept a minority stake. They were probably tied to profit or something like that. And then their shares got diluted for some reason, and they're pissed off that they lost some money. I don't know. That sucks.
Can I take a quick pause?
Sure.
I want to give a shout out to BulletProf guys. They did a podcast. I'll link it up in the notes, where Peter Bolden, he literally pulled out a contract to purchase the practice from a DSO. He goes line by line. He literally goes, this is what it says, this is what it means, and this is where you can potentially get screwed over. And then he literally outlines the whole thing, start to finish. So I'll link it up. It's huge. I took a lot of benefit from that. I didn't know a lot of things from a sale price, how much they give you up front, what do they want you to do, and things like that. So again, I just want to take a pause and add that comment.
But that's a good point, right? Like, you got to know what you're getting yourself into. And if you didn't do your full due diligence, can't go suing over spilled milk.
Okay, this kind of goes back to the education piece though, right? There's a lot of money going around in DSOs, and they have a lot of money due to private equity, and these DSO deals sound super good, and you're like, oh, I've been told that I need to sell my practice. It's kind of there's just not a ton of education around it, other than going, of course, and doing it for yourself, which is the responsible thing to do. But it kind of goes back to the why people take student loans things. It seems like this is something you're supposed to do. Sounds like something you should get into. And
I don't even think you need to do it. Just if you're selling something like your practice that you built, maybe have a lawyer look over the contract.
But I think it's even a bigger deal than that, because there's a lot of ways of structuring DSO deals. And so you can sell, and then sometimes they make you take stock as part of that sale, which you then can get paid later on for. A lot of times they hold the value at different levels. So you may own X percent of this thing at this level, but all the money's at the next level up. And so that's a way to kind of get around that. Right now, I have two friends that have sold to DSOs. They still own parts of their practice, and now they're in the middle of capital calls, which means that if they don't put more money in, then the value of their shares is being diluted. Okay, so if you don't put money in, the value of your shares is being diluted. But if you do put money in, they may not be doing the right thing with them, and the value of your money might disappear anyway. So, what's your real choice here? So, to me, when I have friends that are talking about selling to a DSO, my advice is always, whatever money you get in your pocket from the very first, make sure you're happy with that. Check. Yeah, make sure you're happy with that, because you may not, or you may have a much lower value in the piece that they're promising you coming down the road. And then if you get a capital call and you go, oh, it's going to dilute my shares. Well, I don't know that I want to put my money into a company that's overpaying for practices and that has to have a capital call so they can do their next piece of whatever. And then if I'm not into that, then it makes my value go down. Because then at that point, I don't care about that. I can take that money that they want me to put into their business that I'm not sure is a great business, and then I can go shift it over here and actually have an investment that I understand and that's going to make money for me.
Yeah. Back to that podcast again. Big shout out to Peter. They even go into the details to say they use so much fancy terminology to say, let's just say your practice was estimated at $30 million. So they're saying, you've done such a great job. Dr. Brian, you're awesome. Like, we think that your practice costs $30 million. We're going to give you $8 million up front. The rest is going to be in some primary stock or whatever that could be that's tied to the performance. And they will tie that to the dollar amount. But guess what? As soon as you sell that, first of all, that primary stock, whatever they call, it's literally just a debt note that has a cap at a 5% interest per year. It's not even a stock in the company. It's a debt note. So literally, you might as well just take the money, put it in the stock market, and hopefully get 8% or 10%, right? But they're like, it's a debt. It's a debt note. That's just drove me nuts when I heard that. And the second part is they will tie that payout for like 2 years, for example, just to a goal that you have no control over. Because they will fire your hygienist, they will fire your receptionist, or they will fire your dental assistant who's at $40 an hour. That's like one of the things I talk about all the time. I would like for every private practice to have a dental assistant that makes $40 an hour because she's that valuable, right? But as soon as DSO buys you, she's gone. And then what are you going to do? How are you going to do implants? How are you going to do your endo procedures? You don't even know how to buy endo files because that was her. She was doing it. And now you fire her. You can't do procedures. You can't meet the numbers. They're like, you can't get your earn out. Sorry, you didn't meet your numbers. And now you screw it. And that's back to Aaron's point is, like, they valued the practice at 30 million. They gave you 8 million. That's all you take. And essentially, like, that's all you got.
It's a scary world out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is just dentists being educated about what's going on, and it sounds really good at first, and you just can't count on anything other than the check they hand you on the front end. All the rest of it is kind of smoke and mirrors. It might happen, it might not happen. I know personally of 2 big groups of practices that were bought out by DSOs that then decided they wanted to change the way those practices were run, and that they killed 40% of top line production in the first 2 years. And there's not a thing the doctor could do about it. So, you just can't count on anything.
No. It's miserable.
The real problem
move to Colorado and grow weed.
Or Oregon.
The real problem is where we're all going to go for our dental care. We don't have all this junk going on.
You got to have a good dentist.
I'm glad we ended on a positive note.
Hey, we know a lot of good dentists. It's actually interesting. I talked to someone that my workout group, and the lady said, she's like, I have a dental appointment, but I don't think I want to go to see my dentist today. I'm like, why? She's like, well, he's 45 minutes away from me, and I want to find somebody who's like 15 minutes. And I'm like, this is such an interesting way to consider a dental practice or a doctor for the dental needs, like based on a distance. I'm like, and I told her, I said, like I've worked with some really, really good doctors. And once I find a good doctor, I would, even if I move, I would fly back like a couple times a year just to see that doctor because that's how much valuable. And she was just baffled by that thought. She was like, why would you fly to see a dentist twice a year?
Ask her if she had a really great hairdresser. Would she go 45 minutes to see her?
I should do that next time.
I'll bet you the answer is yes. But give it a shot.
It's a commodity. It's a commodity for most people.
Interesting. All right. What
More
else?
Positivity and flowers. Oh, Ashlee.
Yeah.
Positivity and flowers, baby. Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts? Anything exciting going on that you guys are planning for August? Because it seems like we're taking a break in August. It's like we can't get anybody on a Friday call.
Are we?
Yeah.
I'll be in California for the last 2 days of August if anyone wants to join me.
Okay.
Like a Wednesday, Thursday? What are you doing in the middle of the week? You're killing me.
Then I'm staying there for another little while, but we were talking about August, not September yet.
Oh, got it.
Aaron.
Dr. Nicholas, you have a course coming up at the end of August.
I would say
that's exciting.
I have the 1 hour molar root canal built and crown course coming at the end of August, and I'm going out early to go do the Via Ferrata, which is basically going on this sheer cliff that has a 3,000 foot drop and clipping in with the harness and kind of move it along that way, which should be interesting.
Where is this?
In Colorado, Telluride.
Nice.
Whoa. So you're doing a course in Colorado?
Yeah, we do them twice a year in Tom Reed's office in Denver. If you're out in Denver,
what are the dates?
It's the 26th.
6th.
Right? Yeah.
So it's 2 days, 26th, 27th, August?
Nope, just
August 26th.
Oh. Cool.
But if you're out, you should come out.
Who knows? I think I have a hockey game on that day, but all right.
I've got some bedrooms that GSD Queen will happily rent from my husband if you guys need a place to stay.
There you go.
For a dental nuisance podcast?
Yeah, this is a business meeting.
This is sounding better and better.
What if the IRS hears this? I'm screwed, right?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, the last couple of the last episodes when I cut the clips, they got pretty popular. So I'll share the numbers after we stop recording. So thank you guys again for another pretty interesting episode that we recorded. We got overly excited about certain aspects of what's going on in dentistry. I think we're all passionate about quality and we're all passionate about the profession itself. And so I'm super happy. I can't, like, with the crew that we assemble for this podcast, it really tells the quality and where our hearts are at. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Tiger.
Thank you, Tiger.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks, everybody. All right. We will see you all next time.
All right. Sounds good. Take care, everybody.
Bye.